Mabuhay, Kamustika, welcome. How are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. I want to talk about the cost of loving a woman from the Philippines in terms of monthly expenses. Yes, I did say loving a woman, not cost of living, cost of loving. How much does it cost to love a woman in the Philippines? Let's talk about that. I think there are many considerations. Please subscribe here to Love Beyond the Sea, where I will do my best to explain what I think it's going to take in order for you to have a lasting and satisfying marriage to a Filipina. Comments, they're always encouraged to use the notification bell for updates. I have a website, it's called lvbts.com, and podcasts are over there called Casting Beyond the Sea. You can subscribe to on Podbean. Now today I'm going to talk about heating expenses, electricity, communication, insurance, entertainment, and savings. Affordability, location availability, newer or older, and renting or owning are significant decisions when looking for love in the Philippines. Being married to a Filipina now for just about 6.5 years, I have some knowledge I can share with men who are considering marrying a Filipina, and men who are married to a Filipina already and just want to hear other men's experiences. I can tell you that the cost of loving a Filipina is the same no matter the country you are living in. There are many couples where the husband is not loaded or rich, but his Filipino wife is happy. And I will explain why. Let's start with affordability. Can you afford this cost? One consideration for a Westerner and Filipino relationships is affordability. Will I have to give up too much? That's an important question because many men have raced to the Philippines or gotten involved with a Filipina without realizing that they weren't prepared to sustain the romance once the initial excitement wore off. A better question might be, can you afford not to? I was single for decades before I decided to look for a woman in another country to marry, something I had never before given a millisecond of thought to, but was at a time in my life when I knew I had to try something different. I was 53 back then. I met my wife Isa online, married her 53 days later in the Philippines, and I was married already. Whatever it has cost me has been worth it. Before I look at some budget categories, here are a few things to consider before investing your heart into a Filipina. And they are location, newer or older Filipina, and renting or owning. Start with location. This comes down to the provinces or the cities. A fair question to ask is, which location affords me the best opportunity to find a quality Filipina? I will let my wife give you her opinion as someone who knows the lay of the land, so I take hers as more important than my own, and I will note the time she answers this important real estate question in a live stream, and I'll have the link and put it in the comments section for you. And when you listen to that, she disagreed with my opinion, by the way. Of course, good women can be found anywhere, but she told me and everybody on the live stream where she thought a man had the best chance, thus making the relationship less costly. So look for that in the description box. How about availability? There are ups and downs in any market, but availability of Filipinas to marry is very high right now. It's a buyer's market. I personally know a half dozen Phil-Am couples right here in town and have communicated with others I have gotten to know on YouTube. Men definitely are interested in marrying Filipinas. In fact, the most watched video I have is the one, how I met my wife on Christian Filipina. It's a short 6-minute video, and this tells me looking for a wife in the Philippines is still something men from around the world want to invest in. In my channel, I want to talk about many practical ways to make it work. How about foundation? Sticking with my house analogy, I believe the most important factor in keeping maintenance costs low is a strong foundation. Personally, this was a woman who was a Christian, who had character, who was going to continue to grow, in character over the years, I believed it was this kind of woman I could decide to marry sooner rather than later. As I have stated in previous videos, commonality is good, but there are some that are more significant than others, and that's what you need to decide. You should find things to do together after you are married, but before that, you need to think about what will be undergirding your relationship, the foundation. Now, newer or older Filipina. Okay, continue with the house model here. Another factor for a man trying to decide on Filipina to pursue is knowing if he should marry a newer model or one who's been around the block. If I was looking, or not if, I was looking for someone in the 20 to 30 range and found someone in between that range. She seemed mature and had borne responsibility in her life, and it was a pleasure to chat with her in those early and exhilarating days, around 4 hours a day during the work week. I mean, if you're having difficulty having time to talk with somebody, I would say that's likely a red flag. It can be a mistake, though, to only desire a newer model home, Filipina, because while she looks great on the outside and has high market value, it's what's on the inside that you have to live with. So character matters. And you can gauge this by questions you ask. See my videos on questions to ask at different stages of a relationship. I will give you the playlist in the description, and by her replies, to you. At some point, when you are ready to make a proposal and close the deal, you want to know what her values are, her relationship to her parents and family in general, what's important to her, basically anything you need to trust her. You won't know everything until you are together under the same roof. But once you've made a commitment, you should stick with it and stop shopping for houses. Filipinas. After that, even stop looking at other places to live. Having said that, there are Filipinas who are 30 plus who may already have the maturity and life experiences you want. Honestly, the choices are plentiful in both categories. You may have a difficult time deciding because I believe you do have a lot of options. Also, depending on your overall health and well-being, intimacy is critical, I think, in a relationship. And I think you should consider how long you can please her, so having an enormous disparity in age likely yields diminishing returns, certainly in that area. But I am pro-age gap, however, and have a playlist devoted to that topic I invite you to look at with 26 videos. I will link that also. As far as renting or owning, I'll try to keep this brief, but I believe statistics show that renting tends to be more costly emotionally and financially than owning. There's something to be said for making a commitment and sticking with it, rather than renting, where you can check out anytime you want. In case my dry sense of humor and wit is confusing, I am referring to being intimate or not before marriage. Filipinas are used to Westerners and their thirst for young women, but she wants someone who will commit to her through thick and thin. Why not show her you want to marry her because of the person she is? Then you can have all the intimacy you can handle later. I realize it is common to, taste before buying, but that really isn't necessary, and I think it does cause problems. Now, on to some budgeted expenses. Heat. I have already alluded to that in renting and owning, but will be more specific here. No, I'm not referring to the monthly utility of heat, since that isn't necessary in the Philippines, where heat is ever present until the evening, thankfully, and it gets dark early there. What I mean is sexual heat, intimacy. How is that an expense item? Because in this area, one needs to invest to acquire, and that is very rewarding. If you are marrying a younger Filipina, she has the needs of a younger Filipina. She is young and pretty and has needs. Do I believe sex is a need? Yes, absolutely I do. I know no one has died to complications from not having sex, although I did come close once. But the emotional toll is great. I don't know why this is so controversial. Sex is a gigantic need. Whatever you need to discuss about, about that area before marrying a Filipina, please do. I can say a lot more, but I'm leery of YouTube, deleting the video. For the best heat, the Westerner will need to invest heavily in time, kindness, forgiveness, gentleness, being considerate of her, things like that. That is important. If you can afford this, it makes for the healthiest environment for intimacy with any woman. A marriage counselor will tell you that sexual health in a marriage is a sign of overall relational health. Would you agree? A high heating bill is a good thing. On to the next expense. Let's talk about electricity. So let's substitute the word sparks here for electricity. There can be a tendency after getting married for a man to slow down his pursuit because he just got married. While it is natural to breathe a sigh of relief after pursuing her for a number of months or even years, you most likely will be shifting from a long-distance relationship to the very closest of ones. Biblically, where it talks about people getting married having troubles in the flesh, it is referring to the husband and wife's natures, which are sinful, being exposed on a daily basis. They say in dating, it all changes on the first meeting. And likewise in marriage. It all changes when you are together. Sparks are going to fly sometimes, and I do think I have some videos, and in general this channel can help men with that. To have good sparks, to have improving chemistry, will require an investment of sacrifice, being willing to yield to her and each other, really, in many situations. Especially initially, in my opinion, investing quality and quantity time with her, especially considering how far in distance she is from her family. I would encourage you to allow her plenty of social media time for as long as she needs as she adjusts from the Philippines to your country, if she did move. Other things you can do is tell her you're thankful for not just what she does for you, but thankful for her. Compliment her regularly. Listen to her carefully and be patient with her. Take an interest in her family back home. This will cost you time and effort, but I believe you get what you put into this relationship. Communication. Okay, this is where a phone bill would come in under a real budget. Let your Filipina know that you value her opinion and want to hear what she says. Listen carefully. Learn not to be distracted when communicating with each other. Often, you might have to politely say, hey, please set down the phone for a minute, either on an as-needed basis or regularly scheduled. I think it's a good idea to talk about what's going on in your lives, what both of you are thinking, feeling, believing, and experiencing. Otherwise, she might just say, fine, good. Talk about the future. Like the above, spending more on these areas will yield better results. Well, how about insurance? That's usually a cost of a monthly cost. In case the whole thing falls apart, should you get some kind of insurance called a prenuptial agreement? Well, there isn't enough time for this here, but many say that may not carry any weight legally. I really don't know. I know why this is done. I am realistic, and I won't consider it a wrong thing to do if you feel that strongly about it. It seems like practical protection against the high divorce rate of our times. At the same time, it doesn't shield one from a painful marriage. Here's where we have to acknowledge that marriage is simply costly. Sure, money is involved, but there are difficult circumstances to work through, personal weaknesses to deal with, in-laws, cultural differences, unexpected things, etc. Now, what I personally do is work and pray for the health of my marriage. I get what I consider sound advice from people that can give it to me. I try not to be selfish. I try to put my wife above myself, and I've made some big sacrifices which I consider my responsibility and think they will pay off. I want my marriage to succeed more than I want to personally be successful or even healthy. As you watch my videos, there's like 850 of them now, old and new, you'll see topics that go beyond the surface of a relationship. I don't live in fear of our relationship failing, but I do try to do whatever it takes for it to go well. That is enough insurance for me. You just do the best you can. Having insurance doesn't mean that the house won't burn down or get damaged in a tornado, but I take responsibility for keeping it together. How about entertainment? That's always an expense item. You know, you may not believe this, but I'm not exactly good time Charlie. But I realize it is important to invest in some kind of entertainment. It may be getting used to some karaoke. I see some of my videos of that in the Just Us playlist, if you dare. Maybe some travel. Perhaps it's going to movies, watching your favorite, series. It may even be her watching the ball game with you. My wife loves theatrical musical plays. We've gone to see Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Moses. That was in Branson, Missouri, 7-hour drive. And we had tickets to go to the Phantom of the Opera for my wife's birthday, but couldn't go. Now, if you think those things aren't popular, Phantom of the Opera, it sold out like 4 or 5 shows in no time. In fact, at the Lead Center, it was the fastest selling one they've ever had. And unfortunately, we couldn't go. But those are really, really cool. I think if you like live entertainment like I do, especially sports, but some of these plays are really, really good to watch. And I know I'm forgetting one for some reason. It was an outdoor theater play. It is very satisfying for me to see my wife's happiness. It's an investment, a cost, if you will, but like all others are worth it. In other words, you don't want to be cheap or stingy. You will reap what you sow. Now, let's talk about savings. My attitude when married is to go all out, spare nothing. That is quite different from a typical dating relationship where both see each other, and from the typical LDR where, being in person is not very often. In those, there's no compelling to go all out because you don't know if you'll be getting married. And you're still evaluating the direction and health of the relationship. After a proposal is accepted, though, a marriage has been enacted and you now have an obligation to take care of her emotionally and physically. I don't see the need to hold anything back or to keep score. I believe when she sees that her husband is all in, the likelihood is she will do her best too. I would expect that one or the other is doing more for the other at different times, but it may tend to equal out. Early on, I am investing much care in my wife, but at the end of my life, I think my wife will have her hands full with me more than these early days, as my needs will change over time. The costs of loving are well worth it when you find your love beyond the sea.